And welcome to a special summertime edition of, I don't know, what do we want to call this, Greg Hafer? Do we have a name for this show? This is like a once or twice a year event that we do.
The annual Greg Hafer show.
The annual Greg Hafer show.
I don't know.
Now and we always joke about this every year, when you were a student on the air, you had literally 10 different names you went through.
Yeah, 10 different shows. I was finding my identity.
So
right? That's what you do in college.
Let's first reintroduce you. You're Greg Hafer. You've been here in one form or another for many years. You were once a student. Now you are a famed professor out at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Famous, yeah.
What are you saying?
It's been like 10 years.
10 years. And we also have a special guest, my lovely wife, Jamie, in the studio with us as well. Say hello.
Hello.
You can move the microphone over. There we go.
Has it been 10 years?
It has been 10 years.
Has it?
Yeah.
Well, it's been more than 10 years.
Yeah,
you came in here in
more than
2005, so we're talking 11 years now.
Yeah,
In fact, I still might have that famous promo somewhere that you recorded with Miss Pickle.
Oh, yeah, Pickle, my first co-host.
How is Miss Pickle?
I had
Do you still
four different co-hosts.
Do you keep
Three.
in touch with her still?
Yeah, she's got babies, at least one. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
You go to school with these people and then they have babies. They get married and have babies, and I'm still at school.
Yeah, I can't find that old promo. I'll find it here somewhere. But no, you came in. You first introduced yourself at our door. I think it was about April 2005.
Yeah, because I was a freshman here in 2004 in the fall, and I didn't join the radio station at the time. And I think it was still being put together.
I came in spring of 2004. So then the remainder of that spring, summer, and fall of 2004 was being built. Mm-hmm. And then we went on the air in spring of 2005. So that was our first full semester, and then you showed up at the tail end of that spring.
Yeah, I snuck into a meeting, I think, in 2004.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah.
Not yet. Not yet, okay.
Not yet. I'm not ready yet.
So then you trained probably in fall of 5, and then you were probably blessed to go on the air in spring of 6. So
I was also busy because I was in the marching band that first semester.
So spring of 2006, then, by our calculations, would have been your first time on the air, and we just got done with spring of 2006, so it's been exactly 10 years.
We'll call this the 10-year Greg Hafer
anniversary show. And in that 10 years, you did many different shows. You had a vegetarian talk show.
Yeah, that was with Rachel
Bauer. She's married now. I don't know if she still uses that name.
They're married. People are getting married and having babies. This is what I'm talking about.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, that was the Meatless Mix.
The Meatless Mix.
She found bands with vegetarian and vegan members, and I'd bring little facts of the week, and she would play really good music. And that was the Meatless Mix.
So that was your first co-host, and then your next co-host would have been
my first co-host was Pickle.
Oh, that's right. Your first co-host was really Pickle.
It's Ashley. Ashley
Did you do
Dillman.
a music show with her, or
we did talk?
That was a
the
talk
first
show?
thing, and the reason was Dan Brockway.
Okay.
We listened to that.
Yes.
So Ashley Dillman, we went to the same high school.
Okay.
And so it's one of those things where you're in a new environment. You come in as a freshman. You don't know anybody, so it's a familiar face. And then I was talking to her the one day. We would eat breakfast together and everything on our walkie-talkies.
I remember the walkie-talkies.
Like, hey, you ready? Let's go eat. And I told her about Dan's show, and I said, we can do this. We can't just have Dan Brockway spouting his conservative talk on the airwaves. And
he might very well be listening to this, because when I advertise the show, he always listens. He's
good.
A very loyal listener. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a good friend.
He is a good friend.
He's one of the people that, if you told me to try to remember, I will never forget Dan Brockway.
He's one of the founding fathers, you could say.
Yes, he's one of the founding fathers of KUR.
Yes.
And so he was the inspiration. He'll be happy to hear that.
Yes.
For me to do the talk show. I wouldn't have done that talk show if I hadn't listened to his talk show. And if I hadn't have done that talk show, I probably wouldn't have gotten interested in politics, and I wouldn't have gotten interested into the rhetoric side of the English department. I wouldn't be getting my PhD
if it wasn't for Dan Brockway. You might be a mechanic.
I might be a mechanic. Not that there's anything wrong with being a mechanic.
No, there's nothing wrong with being a mechanic.
I wouldn't have kept continuing to pursue this PhD that
Isn't it amazing how one person can totally change the course of your life?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And not to pat KUR's back on ourselves, but all the time I hear students who leave KUR and they're like, I would have gone a totally different direction.
If we didn't have KUR, there would have been no Dan Brockway.
There would have been no Dan
Brockway. No Dan Brockway, no Greg Hafer.
No Greg Hafer.
Future PhD.
And without you students, I wouldn't be here because there'd be no purpose for me. So where would I be? Where would you be? Where would we all be?
Someday I might be the head of the English department at Kutztown.
You could.
Maybe the president. And I wouldn't become the president of Kutztown had it not been for KUR.
But I want you to go higher. I want you to be governor of the state.
So when I'm governor,
the
first person I'm going to thank in my inauguration is KUR.
I appreciate that.
Wouldn't be here without KUR.
But it's not really a person. You said
Mr.
the first
KUR.
person. See, now wasn't that just discussed recently in the news about corporations being people?
They are
Remember
people.
that?
Yeah, legal. They have the legal right. Money
Yeah.
is speech. They live forever, and they have.
So I guess it's okay to
money.
call KUR a
Yeah.
person.
I tried to personify it. Remember Kurt?
Kurt, yeah, that's right. Kurt. That didn't go so well.
People didn't like Kurt. My stick figure with the headphones.
And then we had a certain person who wanted to marry the station. Remember that publicity?
Yeah. It's like it has its own personality.
Yes.
It does.
So it's just all kinds of different things that personify KUR.
Yeah, and it's important because a lot of universities don't have stations like this, and media like radio is just as important, I think, as any other form of composition.
And radio is not dead. It's just changed forms. Now it's more into podcasting. We podcast a lot of our talk shows, and you can listen on your phone. You can listen on your tablet, your Nook or whatever.
And a lot of people are starting their own podcasts.
Sure.
And they're not just sitting down with a crappy USB mic. The regular people in their basements are setting up studios like this because it's so easy to get radio equipment, audio equipment. I do have that. I have a bunch of microphones and a mixing board. I just didn't have time. I don't have time. I'm ready to go. Once this PhD's done, my media empire will rise.
So you'll be the new Cenk Uygur?
Yes. Oh, what an inspiration. Look at that. That guy took a risk.
Yeah.
With YouTube.
Yep.
Back before YouTube was even a thing.
Yeah.
And back when it had the full format, it wasn't even widescreen. Back in the day, before YouTube, he was streaming on his website.
So just think about this for a second to put this into perspective. 2005 is when YouTube started. So you came to KUR when YouTube was just
the advent of YouTube.
It wasn't even a YouTube at that point.
No, and a lot of people that do these shows that are syndicated and they put it on as a podcast also have a YouTube channel.
She followed my lovely wife follows vlogs, video blogs every day. She watches her favorite 2 or 3.
Yeah. There's certain things you can do in spoken form that you can't do in writing.
One of KUR's, Brian Ryder.
Yeah.
He does a very popular car series on YouTube.
I was just talking about him with my mom the other day.
Do you know that he does a very popular car series, regular car reviews?
I didn't know that.
He actually makes a living of sorts just on his YouTube checks. Yes.
There
he
you
has
go.
quarter million subscribers. Yeah.
Case in point.
So there you go.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I was talking to my mom the other day about this episode the three of us did.
Yeah. After he came back from Alaska.
Yes, he was talking about Alaska, which sounds exciting, right?
Yeah.
And we also talked about old men in locker rooms at gyms.
That's right.
Remember that?
He made the comment that why do old men in locker rooms have to walk around naked all the time? I remember that comment.
That was a hilarious podcast. I'm not surprised that he's making money off of it.
He's great. Well, I was just watching one of his videos last night in bed as we were ready to fall asleep, and she heard him. She's like, he has the perfect YouTube voice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, his voice is fantastic.
So there you go. So KUR has helped people, sent them in different directions. You've gone through many different directions since KUR, and now you are a esteemed English professor at IUP.
Oh yeah, temporary faculty.
That's still good.
I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, but okay. I'm still a professor at a university.
You're a professor. You teach English?
Yep.
Like basic English or
advanced? This semester I'm teaching freshman composition. So
nice.
At IUP, there are liberal studies English courses that every single student is required to take.
Okay.
So we're lucky. We have 2 required composition courses.
Right.
One of them is first-year composition, which most universities have. But we also have a required research writing class, which is composition 2, that every student has to take. And then there's a intro to literature course.
Right.
But so these are foundational classes, especially the research writing, how to do academic research. And so what I like about that is I always find that an interdisciplinary approach to anything comes up with really great new innovative ideas.
Sure.
So being able to teach these courses, I get to interact with students who are biology majors, who are art majors, who are political science majors, and they get together and they work with each other to see different perspectives that they might not have seen
anywhere
before. And then they can look at each other's writing, and it's a really easy way to teach writing because they kind of teach themselves. And I do this thing where I put them in groups that they have for the entire semester, and each group consists of everybody has to come from a different major. There's at least one female in each group, one person of color, and none of them can be from the same town.
Oh, neat.
So I make sure, and this is a whole weekend, I put their names and their bios on these little cards, and I'm shuffling them around, and I have yet to have any kind of problem. Every group is productive. There's none of that awkward, people don't talk to each other, and they're not working together. And it's great. They trade papers, and they see things that the writer doesn't see because they all come from different backgrounds. Whereas if you had people make their own groups and they all think the same way and talk the same way and are interested in the same things, they're going to miss those gaps in communication.
Plus, it's very boring.
It's really boring.
When you're dealing with people that all believe the same thing as you. Yeah.
So I love composition. A lot of people don't like to teach those courses. Full-time tenure-track professors, they want to teach the high-end graduate courses where they just make a book list and they sit around a table and chat about it. Because I don't know, maybe it's less work. I don't know. But
you love doing this. You do this.
The jam-packed, having 40 students. If I was a full-time, I would probably teach 80 100 students maybe, from every different major. I love it. It's fantastic.
It's great.
So if Kutztown's hiring, I am on the job market right now.
Okay.
They can, if they need someone.
If anybody in power is listening.
I specialize in digital rhetoric.
Well, that is the goal, to get you back here to Kutztown.
And eco-composition. I'll never leave.
That's the goal, to get you back. And then as a faculty member, you'll be eligible to have your own show once again.
I'll have my show again.
You'll be back again.
Resurrected.
How many times have you said goodbye only to come back again?
About at least 4 times.
Oh, more than 4.
I've ended my show
6 or
forever.
7,
Yeah.
Forever. The final show ever. Tears shed, and then you're back the year later.
Yep.
So, we're in the studio with Greg Hafer. We went through the history of who you are and all that stuff for anybody that might be brand new to this. We like to bring you on once or twice a year. Actually, it turns out it's twice a year because we totally forgot that you were on in December.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I'm here so often, I don't even remember it.
Yeah, so, and thanks to my lovely wife, Jamie, who reminded you that you were here on December 21st.
I didn't even realize
Didn't even know. You still don't remember it,
on
right?
the solstice, yeah.
Yes. So we like to I consider you not only an English expert, but you're also a political commentator, I guess we can call you.
I think it goes with the territory, especially people that teach composition, because you focus a lot on how language works and how you communicate certain ideas in certain ways.
And we also have to give a shout-out. We've been giving shout-outs to lots of people, Rachel, Pickle, Dan Brock. We have to give a shout-out to Dan Brockway, Dan Donahue, too many Dans, who wanted to be a part of today's show, but he could not. So.
He was on the show in December.
That you don't remember.
Great.
That you don't.
That
remember
I don't even remember. I do remember it now.
You remember?
He was a Hillary supporter.
That's right.
I should be fair. He was going to vote for Bernie.
Right.
But if Bernie didn't win, he was going to jump ship and support Hillary. As I think most people unfortunately will, because the Hillary camp has done such a good job at scaring people into thinking that voting for anybody but her is going to help Donald Trump. So that's one of her political tactics that her vast network of media goons are trying to put out there.
Okay,
Do you really want Trump to be president? So her tactic to winning the election is, I know I'm terrible, but Trump's going to be worse.
I gotcha. Yeah. Still better than him. Okay. Well, we're skipping ahead. Let's go back first of all before we get to that. That's okay. No, that's good. You're on a rampage.
Got excited there.
That's good. No, let's go back to a year ago when we did the show, or even a half a year ago. We had like a little fun thing where we were predicting who was going to be the final 2 candidates.
Right.
And you and I both big Bernie supporters. Dan was as well too.
I said Bernie would win very confidently.
You did. Unfortunately, that doesn't look to be happening.
No.
But on the Republican side, we predicted we were way off on the Republican side.
We were so off.
We both predicted Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush, a lot of people did.
And that went nowhere. I mean, that was kind of, I guess you could say, encouraging in a way, because if you think about it, they always say money buys elections. Not really in this case, because he put more money into his campaign than pretty much any other Republican candidate, yet he lost badly. So what happened with Jeb Bush? He was throwing millions and millions of dollars at it, and it didn't stick. Why? Are people sick of Bushes, or what?
I think people that follow politics were sick of Bushes.
Yeah.
He was kind of a goof. He came off a little, let's say the biggest reason was that they're sick of Bushes, I think.
Okay.
The other reason is people who don't follow politics saw Donald Trump, and they started becoming more vocal. I think the people that support Donald Trump probably weren't as politically active as they were during this election in past elections.
Okay.
So the people that support Donald Trump, I'm sure they voted for the other Bush, right? But they weren't necessarily as excited about the Republican candidates as they were. I think that's the biggest difference. I think there's a shift in which part of the Republican Party has put their support behind this candidate.
So how did Donald Trump, in your opinion, get to where he is today? I mean, if you would have said 2 or 3 years ago that Donald Trump would be the nominee of the 2016 election, people would laugh. That'll never happen. How did he do it?
I think he did it the same way he's always marketed his company and his brands. I remember listening to him on Howard Stern when I was little, saying something to the effect of, any publicity is good publicity. And he used to say outrageous things his whole life, right? And then he would get in the headlines and people would write about it. And he used that same tactic that you use in pop culture, these fake feuds that rock stars have with each other over Twitter, and it builds publicity, and the entertainment shows talk about it, then it's in the magazines and everyone's tweeting about it. He used that kind of tactic in his presidential campaign, and it worked. He's doing controversial things, saying racist things,
anti-Muslim things,
anti-Muslim things,
anti-veterans thing, anti-women's things.
And then he tries to backpedal, but then people get talking, and so that's how he marketed himself, because he doesn't really have a solid campaign. He hasn't been building up email lists. He hasn't been doing research on certain demographics. He doesn't have this network in place to help him campaign that traditional campaigns have. And we see now that he's begging for money. He's not doing so well at raising campaign funds.
Right. So basically, you think that he got pretty much where he did with his mouth. He just mouthing off, saying crazy things, and
he got hours in it. He's so much free publicity from the media because he said outrageous things that he saved money on running advertisements, because everybody talks about Trump. They're still talking about Trump every day. He's on the news. Trump all day. I'm back home, so I turned on MSNBC, and all they talked about was Trump. I turned on CNN. All they talked about was Trump. Turned on Fox. All they talked about is Benghazi. They're still talking about Benghazi on Fox. I couldn't believe it. My head almost exploded. They're still talking about Benghazi on Fox News.
So what Trump has done has actually been kind of a weird reverse thing, because you have the so-called liberal outlets like CNN and MSNBC that are focusing more on Trump almost.
They're giving him free airtime.
Yeah, and then you have the so-called conservative network, Fox. Is not even really talking about Trump as much, because they're not even really that big of a Trump fans, if you remember. And they're talking more about the stupid stuff like Hillary or the Benghazi scandal or the emails or whatever.
Because a report came out that said they didn't find anything.
Nothing. So they're going to talk about that for 4 days.
I couldn't believe it. And I also think he's tapped into – so the group that he's tapped into that I mentioned is sort of lower working class Americans. He's got a populist appeal to it. And I think one of the things that makes this election so different is that it's not so much left versus right, but top versus bottom.
Right.
It's the elites that are controlling our government and the corporations, and the people at the bottom, the working class people, who are getting the short end of the stick, so to speak. And he taps into that when he talks about putting tariffs up on foreign goods. Right? Nobody talks about that. When he talks about securing our borders, he taps into that sort of xenophobia. Right? These people are taking our jobs, and I remember when he talks about going to McDonald's, and he's trying. I think he's appealing to working class conservatives more so than Jeb Bush. Or a good example of someone who doesn't do that was Mitt Romney. He was terrible. Right. The average factory worker looks at Mitt Romney and they see this guy he's a millionaire.
A stuffed suit, yeah.
He's a stuffed suit. He's stiff. He's slick. And when his campaign, when he tried to look like a normal person, didn't he go to Walmart and buy his own underwear to
washing already washed dishes in the soup kitchens?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Paul Ryan.
It looked so fake.
Yeah.
It was a disaster, right? So what I hear people say is they like Donald Trump's authenticity. He just says what he's thinking. That's what I do. And it's like, okay, well, that's not so good when it comes to foreign policy to say what you're thinking.
That is true. Could you imagine how many people would have their whole lives destroyed if they said what they think all the time?
Yeah, that's not good.
That's
not the job of a politician.
That would never work. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how Trump got where he is. How did Hillary get where she is? Why isn't Bernie their nominee right now?
Money in politics.
Yeah.
This has been her goal for decades, since the 70s. And she has this vast network of people in the media. Her daughter is on the board that runs all kinds of media outlets, like the Daily Beast. Her daughter's on the board.
I didn't realize her daughter was on the Daily Beast.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
They have their claws in all of these outlets. Even the major news corporations, the CNN and MSNBC, you look at where their money comes from. The people that donate or run advertisements on those stations, who fund those stations, are the same people that donate to the Hillary Clinton campaign. She has connections all over the world. I was just reading some scandal with a mining company in Colombia and Morocco, and she was pushing fracking all over Europe. And it's like, how does she have time to do all this? It's crazy.
So she just had the right money and the right connections.
The right money and the right connections. She is the most political politician. Like, if you want to find the most establishment politician, it's Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's people who would otherwise. Well, we'll say this. So this is the danger of this, right? It was sort of inevitable. The media was against Bernie Sanders. The people that worked for the DNC, a lot of them were former Hillary Clinton supporters. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the vice chair of her 2008 campaign, of Hillary's 2008 campaign. Again, Bernie tapped into a populist movement on the left. And she's tapping into the wallets of the wealthy elites so she can run all these advertisements. She can run smear pieces. She can have her surrogates in the media say things about how the Bernie bros are just really mean and vile, and he's a grumpy old man. And
right.
You should go on Hillary Clinton's official Reddit page. There is so much. It's so vitriolic on how they attacked Bernie.
Really?
Calling him an old man and how he's cranky and he's angry and his supporters are violent, and it's just absolutely vile.
That's one forum I never really got into. Reddit. Should I?
No, but it's dumb. I don't get it.
Okay.
It's like Snapchat. Who uses that?
Oh yeah, we Jamie
I
and
don't understand.
Jamie and I tried that for like
what
2
is
days
this?
because our arms got bent into doing it by some of my students, and we're like, what is this? Yeah.
I want my post to be permanent so I can look up and be like, I was here on the 21st of December. I don't want my messages to disappear. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Okay, it's good. So we're all on the same. It must be a younger generation
it's
thing.
It's a young people thing.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so where did we get on that? Okay, so that's how Hillary got it. She got the right money, the right connections. So here we are. We're stuck with Hillary versus Trump. Do you foresee any surprises happening this summer? I mean, on the Republican side, we have this whole very interesting Never Trump campaign that has started. You have Kasich, you have Romney, you have McCain that are saying that under no shape or form would they ever support Trump, and they're talking about maybe contesting the convention, starting a third party. On the Democratic side, you have Hillary. You have this email scandal that constantly looms over her head. Do you foresee any surprises where both of them or one of them could not be the nominee, even though it looks that way now?
No, Trump's going to be the nominee, and the only thing that could possibly cause Hillary not to be the nominee is if she's thrown in jail or something crazy comes out.
And do you foresee that happening or not?
No.
Okay.
They're not going to. I mean, all of the stuff that she's done over the years, all the crooked dealings that we have documented, and nothing sticks to her. She's the Teflon candidate. Right? There's so much dirt on this woman about how corrupt she is, and people they either don't know about it, they ignore it, it gets buried, and they're like, "No, she's not Trump," and then they're going to vote for someone that they don't like because they don't like Trump, or because she has a D next to her name. And so I think the Republicans would love to have Hillary Clinton in office.
And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing some top Bush advisors supporting Clinton.
Even over a good Republican candidate, they would probably want Hillary Clinton.
Really?
And the reason for that is she's such a bad candidate that it helps the Republicans use that to destroy the Democratic brand. So say she's in office for 4 years, she's going to be a mess. She's a disaster. She's low energy, and she's And she's going to run these policies, these neocon policies, neoliberal policies that ship more jobs overseas. She's going to invade more countries. She's going to take out more leaders, like she did when she was in the State Department, and like she did when the war she voted for when she was in the Senate. And they're going to use that against her and say, look, the Democratic Party is a broken, corrupt party. Look at all this stuff that Hillary Clinton's doing, and it's going to help them maybe get more people, working class people, onto the Republican side. So I think this is great for the Republican Party to get such a broken candidate like Hillary Clinton into office.
So do the establishment Republicans probably don't even really want Trump? They want Hillary to win this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I heard she was going after some of the former Bush donors to get money.
Well, yeah, we saw that just this past week. What was it, Jamie? I think some former Bush advisor endorsed her, I believe. Somebody on her Bush's.
A few of them.
Yeah, a few of them endorsed her. Yeah. And you have George Bush Jr. and Sr. saying that they're not voting for anybody, which basically, I guess you could say, is effectively supporting Hillary, because if you're not voting for Trump, you're, kind of helping Hillary.
She's a Bob Dole Republican. Like, that's where she is. I mean, the Republican Party has moved further to the right. The Democrats have moved further to the right. If it was 1956, she'd be an Eisenhower Republican. She is not what people think they're voting for. She can get away with things because she has a D next to her name. If she were a Republican, exact same candidate with the exact same record, she would be torn apart by so-called liberals. But because she has a D next to her name, the kind of rhetorical gymnastics that my friends do online or in person, or people write on these newspapers, or you look at the Washington Post. The one day they had 16 headlines in 16 hours bashing Bernie Sanders, or there are pro-Hillary headlines. It's just absolutely ridiculous. These otherwise so-called liberal papers, they're not liberal papers. They're corporate papers. They're part of the corporate elite.
I heard that quote somewhere. I forget who has that quote, but the quote said, "There's no such thing as liberal media. There's corporate media."
Yeah. Otherwise, they would be supporting Bernie Sanders. And they're not. It was the media coverage of Bernie Sanders was just vile in how they tricked people into voting. And I say trick people into voting for Hillary Clinton because the average person doesn't have time or isn't interested in reading blog posts every day, or following Twitter feeds, or looking at primary resources on bills she signed or voted for. I mean, just that the normal person doesn't do that. We're abnormal, Mike.
So then the conspiracy theorists out there who like to do this maybe as like a self-defense mechanism because they're upset that Bernie lost will come up with these ideas that, okay, she had little secret people switching the ballots and all that stuff, and that stuff could have been happening, but nine chance out of 10 what was really happening was that her people were just, not necessarily doing.
They were better campaigners.
They're better campaigners.
Their campaigns were much better because the average person will see a headline, or they'll hear a soundbite in the background when they're at the bank, because CNN's on the TV, because that's the only time people actually watch CNN. It's when they're waiting in line at the bank, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I agree with that." Yeah, and then they'll vote for that person.
Yeah.
And that's not. That's just a normal thing. I mean, other people have other interests, and so. She just campaigned better. Now, there are situations where, in New York, I think it was in Brooklyn, which was a heavy Bernie area, where thousands of people were taken off the voter rolls because they didn't change their address in time.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Well, yeah,
you're
that kind of stuff as well, too.
So you're kicked out of your party if you don't change your address by a certain date.
Right.
You're just not you have to go to a different polling location or something like that. No, you're removed from being registered with the Democratic Party. And it happened in places that were heavily Bernie Sanders. And you had Rhode Island, where 2/3 of the polling places were shut down. For the primary.
Yep.
In a primary. They had more polling places open during Obama's second run, when there wasn't a challenger, when there wasn't, they weren't expecting a big turnout. And then this primary, 2/3 of them closed. And so either, at worst, there are people conspiring to suppress the vote because they know that the fewer people that go vote, the more it favors Hillary Clinton.
Right.
But at the very least, it's incompetence. And we need to fix that incompetence, because if we're getting a candidate into office because people don't know how to run elections, that's also a problem. That's really bad too. So it could be a combination of both.
Okay, so reintroducing our guest, since we're about 30 minutes into the show, we're here with Greg Hafer, former KUR member and political analyst. You got to help us here, Greg Hafer. Jamie and I are kind of on the fence with this, and you're probably surprised at me because in 2012 I was the biggest, Jill Stein supporter, never would support a major candidate under any way, shape, or form. But I'm at the point this year where Trump has just got under my skin, and his fans have got under my skin so badly that I'm almost saying that I would vote for Hillary so we don't have Trump. But what you're saying is that's not a good thing for me to be doing. Why should Jamie and I not vote for Hillary Clinton? Help us out here.
When you vote for somebody, it's essentially saying that you agree with their political policies. So if all of these people vote for Hillary Clinton, then she can use that and say, see, this is what the American people want. The American people want more wars. They want more free trade agreements. They don't mind the privatization of the prison system. We don't have to have universal health care. That's what the voters said when they voted for me. And she's going to use that, right? And the idea that voting for someone that you actually believe in, like Jill Stein, is a vote for Donald Trump, well, if you look at their records, right, Donald Trump says horrible things, but Hillary Clinton actually does horrible things, right? She hasn't supported the LGBT community until 2013. She supported gay marriage, and you had Bernie Sanders talking about transgender rights back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. She receives money from the Clinton Foundation receives money from foreign governments that have atrocious human rights records.
We were just talking about that, yeah.
She was caught off mic when she was going on an interview on TV, and they caught her talking about how we killed Muammar Gaddafi, and she cackled.
That was what you were watching. Yeah.
State,
she saw that.
When she was Secretary of State, right?
Yeah.
And she and President Obama were all about regime change in Syria and taking out the Syrian government when the Joint Chiefs of Staff are like, this is a terrible idea. It just opens up these countries to more terrorism. She's this crazy maniacal psychopath she actually has killed men and women and children in foreign countries. She actually has promoted environmentally destructive practices all over Europe. She actually has voted against and advocated against gay people having the same rights as everybody else. She's done these things. Donald Trump hasn't done those things, and Donald Trump is so wishy-washy. He'll go with whatever the people are saying in the moment, and he'll surround himself with people who are a lot smarter than he is, and it's probably not going to be very productive 4 years, but it's not necessarily going to be worse than having a Hillary Clinton who's all about her own brand. She doesn't represent a movement like Bernie Sanders does. She represents herself. I mean, you should be embarrassed to put the hashtag I'm with her. That's cult of personality stuff right there. That's like Stalin, where it's not about a political ideology. It's about a person, about their brand image. She doesn't represent anything. She's not capturing a movement. So that's creepy. That's scary to me that people are willing to put their support and their vote behind someone they don't care about. That is marketing at its finest level.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here because you're selling me. You're selling me on that. That's good. But let me play devil's advocate here. By not voting for Hillary, aren't we indirectly voting for xenophobia, anti-veteran comments, anti-Muslim comments? I mean, look at what Trump has said.
Comments,
I've had students here in my office in tears because they were so upset at what Trump said last night on TV or whatever he tweeted that day or whatever. How can you justify that?
Well, that's the difference between what people say and what people do.
You don't think Trump will do any of these things? He's not going to build a wall or do any of that stuff?
No, he talks about a wall. You can't just build a giant wall. Okay. It's not even possible.
Okay.
And
they dig tunnels. So.
They dig tunnels anyway.
Yeah.
And Hillary Clinton was interviewed, and she was talking about building a fence, which is the same thing as a wall. Yes. Hillary Clinton wants to build a physical border between Mexico and the United States. So that's no different than Trump. She wants to build a wall too. But you can't just build a wall, right? You need funding for that. You need approval. And the things he says, he switches his opinion 5 different times. He's from New York. He suddenly became religious once he started campaigning, right, and talking about.
Look at what he's done on the abortion issue. He's gone from being a pro-choicer in the 90s to being a moderate pro-lifer to being a pro-lifer where he said he would prosecute women who had abortions to saying, "Oh, I didn't quite mean it that way. I'm kind of a moderate again, and I'm okay with Planned Parenthood." And so he's changed his position on that at least 4 times. Yeah.
Well, and those are the things that scare people about Trump are these social issues,
right?
That really don't have a lot to do with the presidency,
right?
What he'll have control over mainly is the military and all the different branches of our executive government.
Well, isn't that scary in and of itself, too? I mean, we're dealing with countries like very loose cannon countries like North Korea. Do you really want Trump going...
They like Trump.
But that's true. Well, that's true.
So does Putin. They both like him. So.
We've villainized... I think... I'm not a big fan of Russia, but I think we've villainized Russia beyond reason.
Okay.
Right? And I think the idea of making an enemy out of Russia has not really helped anybody. We put those sanctions on after they annexed Crimea, and so they're like, okay, well, we'll just buy oil from China. Thanks anyway. I don't know if that was a helpful move in retrospect. So he's a businessman. He makes deals, right? And I think when he's in office, he's going to have people that are going to steer him in directions that aren't going to lead to absolute disaster. I mean, when he talks about trade, setting up tariffs, right? We are losing a lot of our jobs to foreign countries. And he talks about these terrible trade deals that past presidents have made. Bill Clinton kicked it off with NAFTA. That was the first major disastrous trade deal that affected our labor base that we have in the United States. And so he's not in favor of that, even though he exploits the system that exists, right? Trump ties were made in Mexico.
Right,
he has all kinds of stuff made in China because he's exploiting and taking advantage of the system that the politicians made for rich business people.
Made for him, yeah.
The Planned Parenthood thing. I remember talking about actually being facty when he was saying Planned Parenthood, we're going to cut federal funding to abortion services in Planned Parenthood. Well, guess what? No federal funding goes to abortion services at Planned Parenthood.
Anyway, yeah.
They provide those services at I think it's less than 7% of their clinics even do that. And the rest is other health services, right? Subsidized health services.
Right.
And he's like, the Republicans got to drop this. This is not a winning argument. It doesn't even make sense. So those social issues, his liberal New Yorker side leaks out now and then, and he forgets that I'm supposed to play this outrageous, racist, hyper-religious guy to bring in this crazy Republican, this redneck base.
So do you think he's doing a lot of that for show?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, he's selling the American people.
So he and Hillary are actually both very good at marketing themselves, just in different ways. Yeah,
you're not seeing the real. They're playing into specific tested demographics that they know will get them more votes.
Trump the redneck, hillbillies, and Hillary the,
Yeah.
Yeah, but Trump's been saying racist things all along. Even before he ran for president, he was a racist.
Oh yeah, it's Howard Stern. Yes, it is true. Yeah.
Move your microphone a little closer. Come on, she's very embarrassed about it. You got to participate.
Fine.
Yeah. So I'm not saying he's. Of course, he's a horrible person. You make a horrible president, and he says horrible things that do lead to an empowerment of people that otherwise wouldn't speak out. There's just why is there such a resurgence in racism? Well, it's always been there. It's just now that they have this powerful figure, they feel empowered. I can be racist too. I can make fun of Muslims, and I can. There was that woman that I just saw on the news. Now I have access to TV. The lady was talking to him, and she said, "Why, when we go to the airport or the border security, and there's people there with the heebie-jeebies on," or something like that. She was talking about hijabs, headscarves.
Oh, yeah.
And I think she said heebie something like that. She made up a word. Yeah. And his response was, "Oh, we're looking into that. We're looking into many things." That was his response. Whereas you had you juxtapose that to the one time it was like a town hall with John McCain, and this woman said, "Obama is a Muslim. He's a secret Muslim," and John McCain's John McCain didn't say, or no, in Arab, she said he's an Arab, and John McCain didn't say, well, he's not an Arab, but he said he's a decent family man, he's a good person, we just have political differences, right? And that's how you address that. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump's not doing that, and that's dangerous, and that's going to be a huge problem. But when it comes to this vast network of corporations and media outlets and foreign governments and funding proxy wars and regime change, he's not competent enough to do those things. He's not competent and smart enough to actually cause the kind of destruction that Hillary Clinton is already causing,
or that she's claiming and scaring people into thinking that he'll cause.
Right, exactly. Gotcha. He's not smart enough because he's bad. It's hard. He might offend certain people. It makes it harder then for him to set up this sort of shady.
But is she competent enough to cause all this destruction?
She already has.
Okay, all right.
With the Clinton Foundation, look at this. The Panama He's got
his papers with him. He printed off the Panama papers.
It wasn't hard. I just said, Hillary Clinton, corruption, right? Yeah. She had in Syria. I already talked about Syria, but how Obama and Hillary Clinton want to overthrow Bashir al-Assad, right? With moderate rebels. They were armoring moderate rebels. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff was like, there are no moderate rebels. You're giving guns to terrorists to overthrow people in Syria. And Libya, we talked about Libya, how they went in. And Libya was a stable country with a crazy dictator. And now it's a hotbed for terrorism because they armed people. Iraq, the same thing. She voted for Iraq. You had this stable secular government in a conflict-ridden region, and we overthrew Saddam Hussein, and now it's a mess. It's a disaster, right? I'm starting to sound like Trump. It's a mess. It's a disaster.
He always talks in like 2 or 3 sentence words.
That I can tell you.
That I can tell you. That I can tell you.
Yes. Low energy.
Low energy. Yeah, I have a quote from
Hillary.
Crooked Hillary.
I love his nicknames. They're hilarious. What is this? This is from Seymour Hersh. He's from his book. Barack Obama's repeated insistence on Bashir al-Assad must leave office and that there are moderate rebel groups in Syria capable of defeating him has in recent years provoked quiet dissent. So he goes on how the CIA and the Joint Chiefs of Staff are saying this is not a good idea, and he overthrew them, and it's same thing in Libya. And then Gaddafi, these moderate rebels in Libya. I mean, did you see the videos of how Gaddafi was murdered? They sodomized him alive with a bayonet.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Until he died.
Wow.
These moderate rebels.
That is brutal.
Yeah. She supported the coup in Honduras. There was a coup. A right-wing group overthrew the government in Honduras, kicked out the president, and she said, well, that's in the past. We need to make sure that they have set up a fair democratic elections run by the people that just ousted a democratically elected leader in Honduras. And now there is violence and crime. There was an activist who was murdered in Honduras. That's her record, right? I had, what was the other story that was just updated about Colombia? There's a mining company in Colombia where they hosted this lavish party in Colombia with the Clinton Foundation, and they donated money to the Clinton Foundation. Morocco, it happened in Morocco. The Moroccan government-owned mining company, that's where it was, OCP, operates a disputed international territory in part of the Sahara Desert because there's phosphate there. And Bill Clinton called it the Saudi Arabia of Morocco. And so the OCP paid $1 million to help host a prestigious event, throwing a private cocktail reception at this place. It had government officials. It had all kinds of different tech companies there. So they're in cahoots with all these foreign governments. I have a list. If we go back to the LGBTQ issues, I have a list of all the countries that gave money to the Clinton Foundation.
We've heard about this 2 times, yeah. Not from you, no.
Not from you, other people.
Yeah, other people,
this is
yeah.
Algeria.
Yep.
Up to $500,000. And in Algeria, their state law says anyone guilty of a homosexual act is punishable with imprisonment. Brunei, $1 million to $5 million. Their penal code states that whoever voluntarily has carnal intercourse against the order of nature with any man, woman, or animal shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 10 years. Jamaica, gay men caught having sex face up to 10 years in prison. They gave $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Kuwait, state law says consensual intercourse between men of full age, just men, from age of 21 shall be punished with a term of imprisonment of up to 7 years. There's Oman, Qatar, or Qatar, as some people say. Saudi Arabia is my favorite. $10 to $25 million. Islamic law in Saudi Arabia enforces penalties for homosexual sex ranging from public floggings to death. Wow. For a non-Muslim who commits sodomy with a Muslim, the penalty is death by stoning.
Wow. And they're giving money to
the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's the conspiracy story side with the whole trail of mysterious deaths linked to her and her husband too.
I read that. Yeah. The one.
It was like 50
there's
of
still
them.
People that claim.
There's like 50.
There's still some people that claim that she was involved with JFK Junior's.
John Jr.'s plane for his Senate. He was going to run for Senate.
Funny that one of the secret security guys that was coming out, there's a lot of them were coming out talking about what it was like to work for her. And the one guy said he fears for his life because he's talking about these people that go missing, right? So that's kind of conspiracy.
I try not to get into conspiracy theories too much.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But we do know that the Clintons are very loyal to people who support them, and they're not so nice to people who go against the will of the Clintons. And one of the big things that Bill Clinton used to do is his political enemies. He would have the IRS audit them and bury them in paperwork and all kinds of legal fees, and that was kind of his way to get people back at people who didn't support the Clintons.
Right.
And that's why it was so courageous. The very few sitting politicians that came out and supported Bernie Sanders were risking bringing on the wrath of the Clintons when she rises to power. Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii is still pushing for the progressive agenda, especially at the convention. I think she would be a great person to pick up the Bernie Sanders movement, pick up that progressive mantle to reform the Democratic Party. I would love to see her run for president someday.
Now that we lost Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, her integrity went down the toilet.
Well, have you lost some respect, though, for Bernie Sanders? Because last week he didn't come out to endorse Clinton, but he said that he would probably vote for Clinton.
Well, and he also said voting for someone is not an endorsement for somebody. And this is kind of where it sounds like you are at, right? Just because you're voting for someone doesn't mean you're endorsing.
Right.
And he said that if you endorse someone, it means you're behind that person's policies.
Right.
And what he wants to do, and what he wants to make sure that she changes her position first in order for him to say to his followers, look, the things that I was pushing for, now she stands for. So it's okay to support her because she now realizes that there's 13, 20 million people that voted for him, wanted certain things that she wasn't going to give them. And if she gives in to those demands, then she can bring those people in. That's what he's waiting for. And he's doing that with the convention. The DNC is holding their convention, and it's more than just picking the next presidential candidate. There's also policies and platform changes and all kinds of things that are voted on at that convention beyond just nominating the next presidential candidate. So I think he can do a lot of good, and it sounds like he already is doing a lot of good when it comes to changing the platform.
So playing devil's advocate once again, it sounds obviously it's for the past 50 minutes, it's no denying that you're no fan of Hillary and you have absolutely no intention at all to vote for Hillary.
No.
But my question was, let me finish my question. Could there be a point, though, is if Bernie was able to push her a little further to the left and get what he wants through this little tactic that he's doing of, I'm voting for her but not endorsing her, could he get you and other Bernie supporters to the point of voting for Hillary at any point?
Me, no.
Never.
No, because
even if Sanders gets to that point that he thinks that she's gotten to the...
Even as Sanders, because Sanders is still part of... He's a politician. He has to run... he's part of that system. He has to work with these people. I'm just a college professor. Doesn't really affect me. But and I'm left of Bernie Sanders, right? So the only reason I was supporting him to begin with is that I saw I compromised already with Bernie Sanders on my values because I saw him as someone who had a legitimate chance of changing things.
Right.
And at first I didn't even think that. I remember Dale.
Yeah.
What's Dale's last name?
Bond.
Dale Bond?
Yeah.
The metal show?
Oh, I thought you were talking about
Wilsey.
we had a female Dale. Oh, Dale Wilsey.
Wilsey. Dale Wilsey. I remember when he posted, way before Bernie Sanders was Bernie Sanders, about tuition-free education. And I said, well, the Green Party's been saying that for years. And Dale said, well, the Green Party candidates don't have any chance of actually winning. And he said that Bernie Sanders has a chance of winning. And I was thinking, I didn't respond to it. I was like, Bernie Sanders doesn't have a chance of winning. You crazy?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be brushed under the rug as some crazy. And so, actually, shout out to Dale
Wilsey
for being way ahead of the curve back when I didn't even think Bernie Sanders had a chance. He's like, yeah, Bernie Sanders had a chance. And Bernie Sanders had a chance. He really did have a
When I advertise
chance.
this podcast, I'm going to have to make sure to tag all these people so they're listening.
Yeah, tag all their names.
You've given so many shout-outs today.
Giving credit to all these people.
Yeah.
So no, what she would have to do to get my vote would consequently alienate all of the powerful connections that she's made.
Gotcha.
So it would be impossible for her to get my vote without losing the vote and the infrastructure that she's built up over the years. So it's not even really a question of how she can get my vote. She would have to be as left as she would have to be at least as left as Bernie Sanders.
And you don't see Trump getting in there as any worse than Hillary winning.
No, I think he'll ruin the image of America, and it will lead to a lot of discussions in college campuses. You know, he'll be a great learning moment, like teachable moment. Like, why is this bad? You know, why is this kind of language and this kind of speech detrimental to our country? And that will happen. But I don't think he's competent or powerful enough to cause the kind of destruction that, in order to understand, requires you to sit down and read some of these complicated dealings that go on, right? This is why people grab onto social issues, because they're easy to understand, right? There's a visceral, emotional connection to things like identity politics with racism and homophobia and sexism, right? We all understand that. But when you talk about funneling money through different shell companies, the Clintons, we know they set up 2 shell companies in Delaware. And this is, again, she's talking about how all these loopholes are terrible when the Panama Papers came out. And here Bill Clinton had 2 shell companies that he's funneling funds through in Delaware. So she says one thing. She says she loves the LGBTQ community, and then she's giving money to countries where they're murdering people for being gay. So the things she says are appealing to people. The things she does are actually more destructive than what Trump could ever accomplish with his limited competence.
All right, so let's turn this more positively. Once again, we're talking, if you're just tuning in, to Greg Hafer, former KUR member and an IUP professor and political analyst. Let's turn this a little more positively. You're throwing your support behind Green Party candidate Jill Stein.
Yeah,
obviously.
She'll get my vote for a second time.
And one thing that I will say that this election has turned people into, first of all, I saw a couple of interesting stats, since I like stats, that these two, Clinton and Trump, are 2 of the most underliked candidates, in history. So, and what that has turned people into is that we're seeing Stein, and on their conservative side, disgruntled Republicans going toward Gary Johnson, the libertarian. I'm sure you know his name as well. We're seeing these people get numbers that they've never seen before. I think
record-breaking.
Johnson's up to 10%. Stein's like 8%, which doesn't sound like much, but you add those 2 together, that's 18%. That's a good chunk of the American public that's going to be voting third party this year.
Yeah. It's because, like I said earlier, people are voting for Trump because they don't like Hillary. People are voting for Hillary because they don't like Trump.
Yeah.
And so there are people who just can't bring themselves to voting for someone that they think would be a bad choice. Why would you vote for someone that you don't want to be president? And so you're seeing, a lot of Republicans are going to Gary Johnson, and a lot of progressives in the Democratic Party are supporting a third party.
Yeah.
And, of course, the regular Greens who are vote for her no matter what.
No matter what, yeah.
Combined, just Gary Johnson has more support now than both the Green Party and the Libertarian Party had combined in the last election because of these horrible candidates. There's hundreds of millions of people that could be president, and we have these 2. We have Trump and Clinton. of all the competent, smart people in this country that could do amazing things. We have Trump and Clinton. Those are the choices. That's not how our political system's supposed to work. And it's because they're left out of these debates. And the neat thing is, so the League of Women Voters used to run the presidential debates.
Right.
And the two major parties were started to make all these demands, and they were like, okay, we're done with this. We're not going to do this. And they set up this commission was set up on presidential debates that's essentially run by the Republicans and the Democrats. And so what this does, even if say Donald Trump wanted to debate someone like Gary Johnson, this commission won't let them do that. They can only have debates between Republicans and Democrats. The only rule is if someone in your party, or if you're in a party where the candidates are getting at least 15% in the polls,
15% is the magic number, yeah.
Then they will let you in on that debate.
But by whose polls? Because, I mean, for example...
5 national polls. And this was the thing. It has to be in 5 national polls. But this is funny because what Gary Johnson was pointing out is some of these national polls, he's not included in the poll. So if they see, oh no, these third-party candidates are getting support, we got to call up our friends who used to campaign for us, and then we got them a job, at the ORC or whatever. They can call them up and say, can you just, not put Gary Johnson or Jill Stein in this poll? And then they can't get the 15%.
I've gotten robocalls like that at home. We're with the national polling firm, and are you voting for Trump or Clinton or other? They just they lump an other, but it doesn't say who other is, so that doesn't have to be tagged. So the system's
rigged.
Yeah.
Or they would do something like, well, we just had our annual committee meeting, and we're going to raise it to 20% in the polls.
Right.
They're not going to let these people in the debates. Now, Gary Johnson has the closest chance of getting into the
he's
debates.
actually getting dangerously close, yeah.
And I think that scares them.
Yeah.
But there have been lawsuits for all kinds of different reasons getting candidates into the debates. Nader had a lawsuit. Gary Johnson filed a lawsuit before, and there's all kinds of different legal reasons. Jill Stein and Gary Johnson had a joint lawsuit for racketeering. There's like a legal explanation for that. So they're keeping third parties out of these debates. They're not mentioning these third party candidates or independent candidates or even Bernie Sanders on the TV because they're all part of the same system. They're all part of the same network of elites.
Let me ask you this, because you're even more politically adept than probably all of us here in this room. How did Ross Perot, how was he able to do it back in 1992? How was he able to get into the debates?
I don't know. I wasn't very old back then.
Maybe that was before it changed.
Did they maybe change
I'm not
rules
sure the
afterwards?
dates. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I was only 12, so.
Right.
Yeah, how old was I? 4 or 6. I was 6 years
old.
Yeah. Which isn't an excuse.
No.
I can still look it up.
We'll
I have
to do some
Wikipedia,
research.
Right?
I believe, because I was kind of asking that as a rhetorical question, but I believe that I did hear that it was after Ross Perot was in the debates, they got into some meeting and they changed some rules so that would never, we can't let that ever happen again, So I think that's, So we'll have to see. Maybe it was something to do with the percentage numbers. I don't know. But, okay. Well, so you're getting behind Jill Stein 100%.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, and the thing is, that's what I was going to do
anyway,
right? I was like, oh, it's another election, and I get to look like the crazy guy who supports the Green Party candidate, and Hillary's going to win, and blah, blah, blah. And that's where my mind was at the time. And so that helps me sleep at night. I just think, what if Bernie never ran? I wouldn't be upset. We'd be in the same situation. Hillary would be president. My vote would go to a Green Party candidate, and then it would be just another day in America. But because he had a chance, because we were so close to having someone who could actually fix this country, now I'm like, oh, I could have won. Or it's like people that play the lottery. Yeah. Like, I had every number except the last one.
It's like a sick feeling.
Yeah, it's a sick feeling.
In the pit of your stomach.
Yep.
Same thing happened with Al Gore in 2000. It was
that
was my first election. I went to bed. Yes, he won, and I woke up and Jeb rigged everything.
It's like the opposite of Christmas morning. You wake up and
there are
no presents under the tree.
I still get that sick feeling when I think about it. How I guess Jeb couldn't rig this one, right?
Yeah, it didn't work for him this time. It didn't work for him this time. He tried, but it didn't work for him this time.
That's because he wasn't governor anymore.
All right, well, we're near the top of the hour. We can skip news. I'm just going to, to make sure we're legal, say this is KUR Kutztown, so we have our legal ID in there. We're going to try to go for another half hour. I want to either get it to be an hour or a half hour. So you're getting to you're going to support Jill Stein. thinking of this rather positively, tell us some of her platforms that you like. You said that she's probably, when you and I took that I Side With quiz, and you did it too, she actually was closer. Sanders was a close second, but she was actually closer to my viewpoints, and on yours as well too. She's a little more lefter than Bernie Sanders, right? Would you say?
Well, a lot
lefter.
more lefter,
yeah. Okay.
yeah. I mean, even Bernie Sanders supported a lot of terrible interventionist policies in the Middle East, foreign policy issues. So one of the things she wants to fix this situation where we praise Israel, even though they do indiscriminate bombings on surrounding countries and nations. And she's more anti-war than Bernie Sanders. She's when it comes to student loans, she wants to cancel student debt completely. Bernie wants to transition into a tuition-free system. She wants to do that on top of canceling out the
anything
debt.
That's owned, yeah.
The $1 trillion in student debt that they have coming out of college this year is outrageous, right? And the student loan interest rate, actually I have it, I printed it out.
You're very well prepared today. That's what I like about you.
Direct subsidized loans for the 2016 to 2017 year, the interest rates it's 3.76%. Direct unsubsidized loans for graduate and professional students, so people like me getting a master's or a PhD, is 5.3%. And one of the things that she, even Elizabeth Warren has talked about this, is how the Federal Reserve gives out, right now I think it's between 0.25% and 0.5% is the interest rate that we give to large financial institutions like Goldman Sachs, which is famous for, Hillary Clinton giving these speeches that she doesn't want to release because, as people have reported off the record, saying she had some kind words for Wall Street, and that's why she doesn't want to release these transcripts to companies like Goldman Sachs that get these incredibly low interest rates. Yet our government's making about $36 billion in interest off of the backs of hardworking students because of these loans. We shouldn't be making profit off of students' education. And so one of the things that Jill Stein always brings up is the GI Bill that we had. The GI Bill made tuition-free college for veterans, and they kept track of that. And for every dollar our government spent on education under the GI Bill, we got $7 back in our economy by having an educated, well-educated, motivated workforce. Because when you come out of school without debt, you're willing to move. You have more money to move, to buy a
house,
home,
buy a car,
start your own business. Maybe you can give up a job that you don't like and take a risk and work somewhere else that you might actually enjoy, or actually working in a job that pertains to your major. You wouldn't believe how many people, they get their bachelor's degrees and they end up in jobs that have nothing to do with their bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I see that
and they don't want to leave because that has health insurance and they can't afford to move somewhere else, and they have thousands of dollars in debt.
Yep.
It would pay for itself if we had tuition-free a bachelor's education. So that's not something that Hillary Clinton's in favor of. She doesn't want tuition. She doesn't even mention making it affordable. I mean, it's 2016. You have to have a bachelor's degree.
Didn't she even tell Bernie that he was off base, even wishing for that? Yeah.
Yeah, she's that's pie in the sky, And her plan, we already do. It's not a new plan. One of the things she says in her plan is that she wants to make it so we have debt-free students, and we'll have lower interest rates, or they can work while they're in school. It's hard to work when you're in school. I have students who are working while they're taking 5 courses and trying to socialize, and they're in a new environment, and their grades are terrible because it's a lot to do.
Right.
So you have work programs to pay for college, and then if you don't pay off your debt by 20 years, then it's forgiven. She says that a lot. After 20 years, your student loan debt will be forgiven. Well, guess what? That is counted as income by the IRS.
Yep.
So after that 20 years, you're going to be taxed on that student loan forgiveness as if it were income. That's a disaster. But she doesn't mention that. So one of the things that Jill Stein does I think should appeal to people is this wiping out that $1 trillion in debt. And we bailed out the banks. We spend trillions of dollars on war. We give low interest rates to large financial institutions that caused the financial collapse in 2008. But we don't want to actually help support our students the future of the country. So that's a big thing. She's peace policy, less intervention. We're not going to overthrow leaders of sovereign nations. Transitioning to a green economy where we have green jobs, manufacturing jobs based on solar panels, wind turbines, all kinds of the construction industry is booming with all kinds of new green building materials. And so that putting money into that and supporting research into that is not only good for the environment, but it can help the economy. That's a big thing that she's pushing for.
Is it disappointing to you that Bernie won't, at this point, after the way he was totally treated by the DNC and the Democrats and Clinton, is it disappointing to you that he just won't thumb his nose at them and say, you know, screw you, I'm going to go help Jill Stein? Because she's been really gunning for him.
Yeah.
Ever since, you know, she's always posting stuff on her Facebook page. Come on, Bernie, join the revolution, help me. We'll put the Green Party on the map, but he's not doing that. Is that disappointing you a little bit?
Yeah, because what does he have to lose? He was an independent his entire career.
Right.
And
why isn't he doing that? You think he's just afraid to, or what?
He's nearing retirement.
Yeah.
So he's nothing to lose. I don't know why he's doing that. I don't know if it has to do with... I don't know why he doesn't do that.
What's the cutoff? Oh, to jump on board? I guess it could still happen. Yeah.
Maybe he's waiting until after the convention.
Maybe he's waiting until after the convention, and if Hillary's not to where he wants her to be, he'll be like, okay.
No, I think he's going to... Because he's always caucused with the Democratic Party. He's supported the Democratic Party. And one of the major reasons he's not a Democrat, and this is a criticism you got, he's not a real Democrat.
Yeah, he's an independent running
guess
as a
what?
Democrat.
I don't vote for party affiliation. I vote for policies, right? And the reason he ran as an independent is in Vermont, it's a very liberal state. It's a very small state. And there's all kinds of little left-wing parties in Vermont.
Yeah.
And so in order to... being a Republican is not even a thing, right? So if you want to run in Vermont, you can run as an independent and you can run against the Democrat, and that'll occur at the election, right? The politics are a little bit different than in Pennsylvania, where if I disagreed with a Democrat, well, then I'm out of luck, right? I'm not going to be able to run against the Democrat and have any chance of winning. But if you're in a tiny state like Vermont, you can run against a Democratic candidate, still have a real chance of winning because you don't have as many people that you have to campaign to, right?
Right.
So in a large state like Pennsylvania, you're either going to be a Republican or a Democrat if you seriously want to get into a position. And that's just a matter of the politics of the state, the size of the state, what the state's industry is, economic situation, all of those. There's so many factors involved.
Right.
So he's a left-wing Democrat. He's not a Jill Stein. I think he'll play ball. He's worked with the Democrats his entire career. And I think he's more concerned about his reputation and what work he can get done in the Senate moving forward. So if all of a sudden, because he's always worked with the Democrats in the past, and if all of a sudden he said, I'm abandoning those policies, I'm going to make the party look bad by endorsing a completely different party, it might make it harder for him to continue the work that he's already been doing.
I see.
In the Senate.
So you really can't blame him for doing what he's doing.
You need him.
Yeah.
And you need him there.
Yeah, you need him in there. He's a powerful
So there's an
advocate.
excuse for him to not do that, but there's really, in your opinion, no excuse for a real progressive liberal to vote for Clinton.
Yeah. And I think I read a poll, I forget where it was from, but I think it was around 19% of Bernie supporters are going to support Jill Stein.
And hopefully that number gets up even more.
Yeah, it'd be great. And then
at
least people, even if they don't vote for Jill Stein, if they look into Jill Stein, then they'll by effect get information about the corruption of the two-party system, and they'll maybe start to question their own politics a little bit. Like, oh, I didn't know we'd do that. Or, I didn't know how this money laundering scheme worked, where they're
you've inspired me.
Simon and
you've
Schuster
inspired
was
me because,
putting money through.
Yeah, you've inspired me because a lot of people say they look to me for advice. So even though I still maybe 100% don't know what I'm going to do in November, I got to get the word out about Jill Stein and in fairness to Gary Johnson as well, that people at least know that these third parties exist. Something else that you got to help the third parties do is Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, for that matter, are not on all the states' ballots yet, and that requires lots of signatures. Getting out to, I mean, in 2012, remember I was sending that signature paper around. I had Steve Morrow sign it. We got to make sure that people like Jill and Gary even get on the ballot, because especially in states like Pennsylvania, they stack the deck against them and make it very hard for them to get on the ballot to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the biggest challenge every year.
It's very just to get on the ballot. Yeah.
Ballot access.
I know in 2012 she made it on 46 ballots, which is good, and that's more than mathematically possible to win.
Yeah, and that should be the requirement to have people included in debates. Not
if you're on the ballot.
Are you in 15% of
a good point.
These corporate polls that are run by news agencies?
Yeah.
It should be, do you have enough ballot access to technically be elected to the office of the presidency? Because there are people that run for president that technically cannot become president.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone on the American Communist Party. I'm sure there is one. I don't know.
I think there is. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
They don't have enough ballot access to even be the president.
Right.
Jill Stein and Gary Johnson have enough ballot access where they could actually technically, if people showed up to the polls and they voted for them, they actually could win the presidential election.
So they should be in the debates.
So they should be in the debates. Those are the four people, right? It's going to be Trump, Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein are the only four candidates that are going to be able to technically win the election. So all four of those people should be included in the debates. Yeah.
So we got to change those rules.
It's not a hard rule, right?
No, it's really not. No, that's way simpler. Because Jamie and I were just joking because last night Hillary's been ahead in all the polls lately, but then last night a poll comes out and it has Trump winning easily in November. And she says to me, "How is this possible?" And I said, "Did you see who the poll was done by? Rasmussen. Rasmussen is a conservative-leaning poll.
Yeah.
So that's of course you're going to get that response. So."
And those rules about the poll, the elections, the Commission on Democratic Debates, presidential debates, is a private nonprofit organization. Right, it's not run by the government.
No.
It's not a publicly funded institution. So the debates need to be run by a government agency. It was hilarious. They were the prime minister. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Brown? No, not Gordon Brown. Who's the prime minister that just stepped down?
Oh, the guy that just
not
really
Tony
old.
Blair. I know.
That's really
oh,
old,
that's
right?
really
Yeah.
Well, he stepped down, right, because of the whole Brexit thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had 24 hours for people to put their name in to be nominated for the next prime minister. Now, they don't vote for the prime minister. The public doesn't vote for him. It's chosen by Parliament. But
David Cameron.
David Cameron, yeah. My goodness. Wow. But yeah, it's 24 hours, and they have 5 people that are up for the vote in Parliament for the next prime minister, and just like that, it's over.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we have these 2, 3, 4 year long election cycles that are just outrageous. It's an industry in itself. These channels make so much money. It is a circus. That's beautiful. There's that what's that Schoolhouse Rock song, where they compare the 3 branches of government to a 3-ring circus.
True.
That metaphor is deeper than I think they intended, or maybe not.
Now this is interesting. This is funny that this story breaks just as we're now. If you're listening to this story, this podcast or broadcast, probably next week sometime. So this won't be an active story then. But we're recording this. No, we're recording this on Friday, July 1st at 2:11 right now. And I just got a breaking news thing, as me with my news. I get news all the my phone's beeping all day. BreakingNews.com just shared that U.S. reports that drone strikes outside active war zones have killed 64 to 116 civilians during the Obama administration, and they're quoting Reuters. So that's kind of a weird breaking news thing that they're that they're just throwing this out there. Is that somebody trying to prove that Obama is just as war hungry as any other Republican candidate?
Oh yeah,
there?
he has done more indiscriminate bombings than George Bush. I mean, Obama is the drone president. He's the guy that ushered in this whole industry. Northrop Grumman is a huge contributor to some of these political campaigns and think tanks. They manufacture military weapons. One of several private corporations that manufacture army tanks and fighter jets and spy satellites, and Northrop Grumman's probably the biggest one when it comes to drones. And some of those drone strikes are based on cell phone data Like, oh, that's the cell phone signal of a possible terrorist, and they'll just bomb that location. They kill civilians, women, children. They bomb weddings. They do double taps. So when the first responders show up, they bomb again. There was that situation with, and this happened twice, 2 hospitals, Doctors Without Borders hospitals, were bombed by U.S. military. One was napalmed. These people spend, all 32 years old, they finally get their medical degree, and then they're probably in debt, and they go and volunteer in foreign countries. And in the United States, they burn to death in a hotel or in a hospital in the Middle East because there might be terrorists.
There might be someone. I just looked it up. I was trying to do a little background information. That's the nice thing about technology. I can do it right as you're talking. I was trying to figure out what the motive is behind that weird breaking news thing. It's a U.S. report on the number of civilian casualties from American counterterrorism strikes issued. It's part of Obama's promise to have increased transparency about his administration's use of drones. So I guess he's trying to say that, he's being more transparent by admitting that he killed 64 to 119 or whatever the number is. And I guess that's supposed to be good in his eyes? I don't know. It's
disturbing. Yeah. Well, you just made me think of this language war.
Yes.
The idea that people like what Clinton says, but they wouldn't like what she actually does if they knew about it. And one of the things that shocked a lot of people is when I told them about the Human Rights Campaign. Mm-hmm. The Human Rights Campaign is a corporate think tank, but people think they do all this great work promoting human rights issues, the gay and lesbian community. You see professors with their Human Rights Campaign sticker. It's a blue square with the yellow equal sign. You see that?
Yeah, I think I've seen that, yeah.
They get their funding from private corporations, and the reason they do this is that they can do all this good work on human rights, and it gets people very emotional and connected and attached to these social issues, right? That's the way you pull people in. And then they can turn around, and the Human Rights Campaign did this, and they endorsed Hillary Clinton. And you go, well, that's kind of strange when Bernie Sanders, again, was talking about and fighting for these rights since the 80s, the 70s, and she has quotes of her saying all the way up into 2013 on the Senate floor, I do not support a marriage between people of the same sex and all of that. So you're like, why is the Human Rights Campaign coming out and supporting Hillary Clinton? Yeah. And it's because they have the same donors. The same people that fund her campaign fund the Human Rights Campaign. And I brought this up when you mentioned drones because Northrop Grumman is one of the platinum partners that donated to the Human Rights Campaign. A drone manufacturer that blows up women and children, and they make fighter jets and spy satellites to murder people, is supporting and funding the Human Rights Campaign that just so conveniently supports Hillary Clinton over an actual candidate who supports human rights.
Wow.
Other people, and I see...
It all comes down to the almighty dollar.
And I'm like,
money.
I see professors with these stickers, and I go, you're scholars. You do research. You gather data. You set up scientific methodologies.
It's not that hard to come up with that information.
I'm like, how can you put the Human Rights Campaign sticker on your door and say you're supporting Hillary Clinton? I mean, and this is just one organization, and you can see you have Northrop Grumman makes military equipment. There's Coca-Cola. You have a lot of financial institutions, Bank of America, which does investment banking, right? Goldman Sachs, I think, is on here. Yeah, Goldman Sachs is on here. Capital One. Boston Scientific makes medical equipment, which that's the biggest industry. Pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Pfizer's on here, too. Pfizer donates to the Human Rights Campaign. So pharmaceutical companies and medical equipment companies are making so much money on our healthcare system. And this is another thing
that we didn't even talk about healthcare.
Jill Stein wants she says that we have a sick care system, which is true. Mm-hmm. You only get treated when you're sick. We don't do anything preventative. We don't do anything, make it cost effective for someone to go in and get checkups or to catch certain things before they become worse. I have friends who are like, I have a toothache, but I can't afford to go to the dentist, or I can't afford to go to the doctor. And then it gets worse and worse, and they end up having to go into an emergency and do this big, expensive operation when that problem that they had could have been solved had it been caught early and treated right away. But we don't have the money for that because we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. And the reform that Obama pushed through, and remember Hillary Clinton used to be for universal health care, and now she's against universal health care because you have Boston Scientific, and you have Pfizer donating to these campaigns who benefit and make money off of sick people, right? Obamacare is an insurance plan. It has to do with reforming insurance companies. It has nothing to do with health care. We're talking about private insurance companies. We're forced to pay in to private insurance companies. He guaranteed them thousands, millions of new customers. And Jill Stein points that out. She's like, why is... And the only reason he got away with that, and this is the Romney care, right? Jill Stein's from Massachusetts. She ran against Romney for governor in Massachusetts.
I remember that, yeah.
And she's like, hello, Romney was doing this in Massachusetts. This is a Republican plan. It's a handout to private corporations.
Yeah.
And so she wants to have, like every other industrialized country, a medical...
Right up the road in Canada.
A healthcare system that actually lowers the cost of prescription drugs and treatment, promotes preventative care, and doesn't bankrupt people. Because before, and it hasn't changed since, even people with health insurance can't afford healthcare costs. They have health insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And you have these huge deductibles and huge premiums, and you have to, you give them all this money, give them thousands and thousands of dollars every year, and then if you have a serious medical problem, you still have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars before they even give you any money back.
We've seen some of our deductibles go up a little bit, and that's in response.
Went up,
Copays, yeah.
The copays went up because of this magical thing called the Affordable Care Act. It made things more expensive. A lot of people in my family are in the medical field.
Made it more expensive for me.
And the only reason people do backflips to defend this is that Obama has a D next to his name because he's a Democrat. If a Republican implemented the exact same health care bill,
you would have never heard
you would see all of these media outlets bashing it, right? But because he's Obama and because he's a Democrat, oh, this is great. It's getting millions of people covered, and college students, can stay on their parents' health care plan. It's like, but it's not a health care plan. It's a health insurance plan. So that's a big difference between the Democrats and the Green Party.
Is that your phone or my phone?
Mine.
We're so in tune with everything going on in society.
It's good. We should be wired.
That's it.
We're the most informed. It's so easy to be informed now. And I hate people that bash technology.
Right.
It's like especially younger people that grew up with this. Most of them, maybe they're distracted, but they have access
to much more information.
They're more informed. I think they're more politically involved. People younger than me, I see more politically involved than even my generation.
And Jamie and I were talking about that because we're like, we were looking at Hillary Clinton's stats of her demographics and who she attracts. She does much better with like older people than younger people, and that's probably simply just because older people are not using the phone as much.
They're not as informed.
Yeah, and all they're watching is MSNBC, all they're watching is CNN, all they're watching is CBS, ABC, and of course all you're going to get from them is Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. That's it. You're not going to get Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein,
it's the
Bernie
TV
Sanders.
telling you what you want to know. It's a linear process.
That's right.
When you find your news on the internet, you can pull up immediately, click tabs. You can open up 10 different sources on the same story and see, well, that person said that, and that person said that. Well, this person actually linked to that article, and that article linked to this article. So those articles, I won't look at those. Oh, these people actually have links to government documents and PDF. I'll look at that, and you can find all of these sources, and you can find out that, oh my gosh, the Human Rights Campaign, which is endorsing Hillary Clinton because of her stance on LGBT communities, also gives money to medical equipment institutions and pharmaceutical companies and military manufacturers. You can find that in just like that, snap of the finger. I'll do it. I didn't know if I could snap. Hands are dry.
You did very well. So what is what is Hillary and
what is Hillary?
Yeah,
That's what is she?
What is Hillary and Donald Trump's motivation?
According to Secret Service agents, she's a psychopath.
Well, I've heard that. But what is
I have quotes.
What is her motivation? I'm sure you do.
Let me find it in my stack.
I have this stack of papers. Not very good technology. I just flipped through papers.
But you got all those papers off the internet. So
I got all these off the internet. There was a great interview. One guy said she would never talk to them. One guy got in trouble because he was changing a light bulb, and she fired him. He was in the White House for years, and then under the Clinton administration, he ran into Hillary, and he wasn't supposed to be changing light bulbs while they were at the executive estate, and she fired him, and he didn't have a job. The Secret Service said that was a punishment to be on Hillary detail, to follow her around. She would yell at people. She'd say "F off," and she's just crazy temper, and
I believe it.
Which
it doesn't surprise me.
It was like, it seems believable, and then you have people come out and they're like, no, yeah, she throws things.
And I got into this conversation with somebody recently. What is her motivation for running? Is it power? Is it money?
Power.
It's power.
Power? Okay.
She's ready to retire. How old is she? 67?
Yeah.
68?
Okay.
She has all the money in the world. She has multiple mansions. She has political connections all over the place. She has the Clinton Foundation. She has everything a human being could possibly have. I would say she's probably the most powerful person on the planet.
Okay.
So why would she run for president?
So her motivation is just an ego power trip.
It's 100% ego.
What is Trump's motivation? While we're on the...
I think Trump's motivation was, oops, this was an accident. I didn't think I'd make it this far.
I do want to address one other thing,
I don't think he wants to be president.
I want to address another conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
you know where I'm going with this, Jamie. But
I know where you're going.
Yeah. There is
he's working with the Clintons.
He's working with the Clintons. What is your theory on that? That he's purposely saying these crazy things to help her?
I do think they were friends. I'm sure they went to the same. They did go to the same parties.
Yes.
He gave money to her in the past. I don't think they consciously planned it. I don't think they called each other up or met at
there
bench
was a
in the
phone
park.
call supposedly a phone call between Bill and Donald, like 6 weeks before he announced his.
They probably it's just speculating,
because his things just keep getting more outlandish. Like he's like, okay, well, I said something about the Muslims that didn't work. Then first it was Mexico,
veterans,
then Mexico, then the veterans. Then he went after the troops again with them stealing money in Iraq. It's like he's trying to throw more and more stuff out there, but.
Well, I bet they're chummy, right? I think the things he says to the public and the things that go on behind the scenes.
Two different things.
Two different things. So I guarantee you they probably, even after he said, what does he call Crooked Hillary and all this, they're still going to hang out after. 10 years from now, they're going to be, in their 80s and they're going to be sitting at one of Trump's golf courses joking about.
Why would Trump want to be president when he has all these businesses? He's not going to be able to run his businesses when he's the president. No. So what?
He lost a Macy's deal. There are people shutting. It's not good for his brand.
Yeah. So what?
So what is his motivation? Is he working with Hillary secretly? I don't know.
I think they probably joke about it, like, oh, I'm handing this one. He's like, now you came to my wedding. Now I'm giving you the presidency. Yeah. But that's a little bit bigger. So you're going to owe me. Trump's going to be like, you owe me, Clinton, for giving you the presidency.
Right.
Because I really think he was doing it like he always, with his businesses, he was doing it for publicity reasons. Yeah. I honestly don't
think he expected it to get this far.
He didn't think he would go that far.
Because he doesn't have a campaign. He doesn't have a legitimate network of people. Yeah. He's completely unprepared because I don't think he planned on any of this.
All the uneducated voters, like he said.
Yeah, I love the uneducated, right? Yeah. We have him on video saying that at a rally. And I think he got to a point where he can't. It would ruin his brand even more if he backed out.
Yeah.
He has no integrity.
So he just wants to say the craziest stuff he can.
Right.
I think he's at a hard place where it's like, this is, well, no matter what I do, it's going to damage the Trump brand, but it will be less harmful to my brand to keep going than it would be to drop out.
So then let's make this official. You and I have had lots of fun over the years with making predictions. Since we, with our crazy schedules, we're probably not going to get together for another special show. Well, maybe we can over the phone. We'll see.
Before the election.
But what is on July 1st, 2016, that's a nice round date, beginning day of July, second half of the year. What is your prognostication? Who wins in November?
Oh, Clinton has it.
Clinton's going to win? Okay.
It's her. Okay. She owns this country.
Yeah. Okay. So Clinton wins it.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind.
Okay. Is there any way that Trump could surprise?
Not with her shady dealings.
No. Yeah. Even if he had more votes, right? She is again a better campaigner, right? Even if he somehow got all of his stuff together, you'd have all of her friends in the media digging up. It's not going to be really hard, but they're going to be digging up all kinds of shady stuff. They're going to be suppressing certain votes for Republicans and working class states. And it's not really that hard, I guess, if you have that much power to focus on the swing states.
Right.
Because there's certain states that will definitely go to Trump, and there's certain states that are going to go Hillary Clinton. So she just has to.
So you are pretty convinced it's going to be Hillary Clinton wins. We have her for at least 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
What did she do with those first 4 years?
Nobody knows.
Is she fairly successful?
We know what Bernie was going to do.
Well, we know Bernie.
We know what Jill Stein wants to do.
Right.
We don't. Nobody knows. I'm with her.
Yes.
Just as long as she's there. It's Hillary. She's there, and she's sitting there in a White House doing stuff.
What about with because it's not just a presidential election too, so I think we need to fill up
the down ballot candidates,
Yeah.
in Congress.
and I think Bernie helped a lot with getting good people, and
Yeah.
I think that's maybe that was Bernie's motivation in the first place.
If not, it was. Well, he's part of. He always says from the very beginning he's part of a movement. People aren't voting
That's
for
the
Bernie
movement.
because he's Bernie.
Yeah.
They're voting for Bernie because he represents the movement that really showed itself with the Occupy Wall Street was sort of the beginning of.
Yeah.
I think that generation.
And how much power does the president have anyway without the support?
I do want
Exactly.
to. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that will benefit us.
I want to throw one other devil's advocate thing on there because you pretty much got me like 90% now back towards Jill Stein, but.
You want more stuff on Hillary?
I'm good. I'm good.
No, I think he's going to vote for Trump.
Treasury.
No.
Yeah, you're more convinced to vote for Trump.
No. But my question is,
Doesn't want to legalize cannabis.
All right,
for
all right, I
free
got it,
trade
got it.
deals,
When I
increase
took that-
fracking.
Yeah.
When I took the quiz, I
Yeah.
went Bernie, Jill, Hillary, Trump.
What about the other?
Hillary.
What about the? Okay, here's my question. What about the other scare tactic that Democrats use? Trump
She
gets.
reauthorized the Patriot
Okay,
Act in
I got
2005,
you. But the other scare tactic.
Called black kids super predators.
Okay.
She
Supreme
loves
Court
blacks.
Supreme Court nominees. Well, what about Supreme Court nominees? We don't. We get Trump in there, and he turns the Supreme Court into some crazy right
But
wing.
he might not, because in most of his life he was
Okay.
a Democrat.
Yeah,
So this is
he's
just-
not a conservative. He's a
businessman.
He's a businessman.
Okay.
That's what people like about
and
him.
he's telling you what
All right.
you want to hear to seal the deal.
All right.
Exactly.
I'm
And
back
he's-
on the Stein
he's-
train. Thank
he's
you.
covering up his
That was my
liberal
last
leanings.
question.
Yeah,
He's in New
just
York.
trying to
He-
seal the deal.
He's covering up because he used to be on the Howard Stern show all the time. And growing up, middle school, high school,
I didn't realize he
loved-
was on the Stern show,
I
but that
love
makes sense.
the
Yeah.
Howard Stern show, right? And so
Yeah.
he's that kind of New Yorker.
People
and
still
The
listen
New
to
York
Howard Stern?
values.
No, he's on XM. and
New
no
York
one.
values.
Yeah.
He has New York values
Yeah.
that who made fun of that? Was it
I
Ted
think it was Cruz.
Was it
It was
Ted
Cruz.
Cruz? And so everything he's saying is he's marketing himself to the rest of the country. So he's not going to put another Scalia, even though he said that. He's like, there was the Supreme Court ruling on another abortion trial, and it was kind of funny because it was 5-3.
Yeah.
But he was being interviewed on the radio and said, if I was the president and I had another Scalia in there or someone like him, it wouldn't have turned out that way. Well, yeah, it would have, because it would have been 5-4. So he's not up on the news.
Yeah,
But
and he loves that beautiful city of Belgium.
Yeah, the beautiful city of Belgium.
Oh my goodness, he might have better lines than.
And the shooter in Orlando was from Afghan.
Yeah, he's from Afghan.
He's from Afghan.
First of all, he's from New
So
York
many-
City. First of all, he's from New York. Second of all,
Same-
where's Afghan?
He was
Where's
from
Afghan?
the same
Yeah.
borough,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, boroughs.
As
yeah.
he was born in the same borough as Donald Trump
yeah.
was.
They're practically
Not
neighbors.
borough,
They're
though,
practically
but-
neighbors. Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you about Trump. I don't even he shouldn't be getting endorsements.
No,
Well, look
From
who he's
someone
getting.
like
Look who he's
Cuomo.
getting endorsed by, though. People
Yeah.
equally as crazy as him. So,
not decent people.
Yeah.
But we can sit here and be like, he's kind of like a secret liberal, and he's just doing this for publicity. How did they not see that?
See that.
How did they not get these conservatives get upset when he talks about implementing tariffs?
well,
on
I
free
just
trade?
think the main thing now.
Well,
is
there are a lot of conservatives that don't
Yeah.
necessarily.
Oh, well,
like
that's
him.
true.
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
it's just like you said, if they have an R behind their name,
Yeah.
same thing goes for them.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
Because
point.
I know plenty
Because he
of
has an
them,
R behind his
especially
name,
when
yeah.
you go to church. Their big thing is abortion
Yeah.
and gay marriage. Although he says he loves the gays.
I have many gay friends. I
Everybody-
love the gays.
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell's not one of them, though.
Right.
Yeah, she's. What do you call her? Disgusting pig.
Yeah.
That's one of the nicer things he called her. But she called him an orange slug the other day, so that's a point
So-
for Rosie.
Yeah, it's party politics. It's identity politics. It's which is really scary when you look at these cult of personalities that were developed.
And
Mao
I'm a woman. And I do have to agree. There's a few things I actually agreed with Donald Trump on.
Yeah.
And when he said that Hillary getting by because she's a woman, I definitely see a lot of these young feminists who were just voting for her because she's a woman.
Yeah.
And they're like the ones who are in like television and movies, and they run their mouths and go on like,
Call them the regressive left.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
And it's just because she's a woman.
Which doesn't qualify you at all, or even, I remember getting upset about that when people would sign into law like things about women's reproductive rights. Like, look at all those white men signing it into law. It's like, well, I'm a white male and I wouldn't have signed it into law.
Yeah.
You know, it's about your ideas that you represent. Like, if you have feminist ideals, it doesn't matter what your gender is. Having certain bits and bobs down in your nether regions doesn't make you any better a leader or any more of a feminist. I don't know what I can say. I don't know how
Bits
Oprah
and
can
bobs.
push the bits and bobs.
That's fine. It's scientific.
Undercarriage.
It's scientific. As I
The
train my
pillar,
students in
yeah.
indecency, as long as it's scientific, it's okay.
Yeah, that's very scientific.
Yeah,
Bits
very
and bobs.
scientific.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a huge thing, and I think that's why a lot of academics are doing. It's time for a female president.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if that female president blows up other females with drone strikes?
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for a female president. What about Sarah Palin? Would they vote for her?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you want a female president that bad, vote for Jill Stein.
Jill Stein is a
Absolutely.
progressive and a female,
Yeah.
and she's Jewish.
And actually
you get the full package. You
and
get
I-
everybody.
Exactly. And actually before that, John Stein was also the candidate in 2012, but in 2008, the Green president nominee was a black female, if you remember. What was her name?
Cynthia McKinney.
So there you go. You could have had an African-American woman. You could have had two.
Had an African American
Yeah.
woman.
But no, they just settled for
Yeah.
the
So
D or the R.
that's one
Yeah.
of the excuses they
Yeah.
make. They don't actually believe. It's just one of the things that they use to rationalize
Right.
and feel like they're making the right decision, because people don't like to be on the losing side. And I think people are, so they'll say, oh, this is terrible, I don't agree with this person. Like, there's this cognitive dissonance in the back of their head, and then someone challenges them, well, she's a woman, and it's time for our first female president. And I think a lot of people, too, they voted for her in 2008. She didn't win, so they're not really following politics. So I voted for her already, so I'll just vote for her again this election,
Yeah.
without really looking at the other options or looking into Hillary Clinton's past or some of the things that were uncovered since 2008. Because I voted for her in the primary in 2008
I.
over
Yeah, she did.
Barack Obama.
I did too.
I thought she was a better candidate than Barack Obama. They're cut from the same cloth. He's the Obama in chief.
Yeah.
I just made that up. I'm
You
sure
know what I
someone thought of
also
it.
wonder, but this is more of a conspiracy theory thing, but things that I've noticed is there's somebody or something higher above the president that if they're not going to play by the rules, then you're out. The only president, I think, out of all of the presidents, and everybody says that he was a terrible president, but he was the greatest person to ever hold office, would be Jimmy Carter. And I think he went through the same thing because he wasn't going to fall in line like the other presidents did.
So when you talk about these higher persons, these other hands, are these what we hear about, the conspiracy theories with the Bilderbergers and the what's the other one?
I don't know who they are.
The
The
Bohemian
One
Grove.
World Order.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they are, but I honestly think that there's other people.
Yeah, Rothschilds,
Yeah.
that's another one, yeah.
Because it's true. You look at who President Obama was before he was president, when he was a constitutional law professor, and the things that he was saying back then were very different than when he got into office. And the whole thing with Edward Snowden, because he campaigned on that, how we need more protections for whistleblowers, and it was on his website. And when that whole thing happened, it disappeared from his website. Like, don't talk about that. He's a traitor. He's committed treason.
I honestly do think that there are powers behind the things.
But Hillary Clinton, who's not in office, has said, it's number 25 on my list, she would lock up Edward Snowden and throw away the key, even though he should be protected under whistleblower status, because he uncovered things that the government was doing illegally. It wasn't like he was giving away secrets that are detrimental to the troops. He was saying, the government's doing things they're not supposed to do. They're overstepping their power. We need to keep them in check. This is why we have whistleblower status, to protect people under the law. And they're like, nope, lock them up.
And that's kind of along the same lines as, just briefly, and we're
running
out of time, but that's kind of along the lines of this whole email scandal. I've never really gotten into the whole big thing, and the logistics of it. It probably is overblown, fine, whatever. But a friend of mine had a very good point, and he's in the same boat as you. He's not voting for Clinton. He said he doesn't care if Trump gets in. He's going to vote for Jill Stein. But he said the same thing. He said, okay, maybe what she did really wasn't that bad, but if you or I set up a server in our basement and were routing emails through that server, we'd be in jail. Mm-hmm. That'd be the end of us.
Yeah. And why would you do that? It's not even like...
And why would you do that to begin with? Unless you had something to hide.
There's a difference between, if she used Google, right? It's going through a private server. It's going through Google's server farm, and it's not going through, the government, whatever they have set up, which is probably more secure, right? So that's dangerous. But it wasn't even that. It was in her house.
Yeah.
It was like who sets up email servers except computer nerds and internet hackers and
maybe it was set up for Bill and his extracurricular activities.
Hey, that's what they covered up.
He wanted his own private server because he knows what whistleblowers can do.
Yeah, he's a whistleblower. So yeah, it seemed silly at first, but the more I read about it, it's like she's doing it because she's hiding something. It's the same reason she won't release transcripts for the Goldman Sachs speeches. And it might not even be a case. I don't even think it's a case where there's classified documents on an unsecure server. Unsecure. She's insecure if it's unsecure.
Right.
But I think it could be that there are other emails about other things that she doesn't want revealed. So people said, we got to look at this because there might be classified documents, and then you'll find out, here's an email to this, this mining company in Morocco that I was talking about, or this oil company in Colombia, or you'll find out more about how she did favors as a Secretary of State for
Donald Trump.
For Donald Trump. Maybe Donald Trump's in there.
Yeah.
Or she got millions of dollars from a country, and then through the Clinton Foundation, and as Secretary of State, she's negotiating these deals that, there's all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
That doesn't have to do with classified information that she wanted, because she didn't want the government to know. Because if you're not doing anything shady, and it's official government business, it doesn't matter if you use the secure government databases. That's the whole point.
Right.
So it's things that are outside of the government that she was doing that she wanted to have run through that would compromise her image. That's what she's hiding. It's not the classified documents about military secrets or anything like that.
Well, guys, if you had headphones on, you would hear Nina Simone in the background.
I love Nina Simone.
Yeah. We filled up 2 hours. 2 hours straight. What do you think
I
about
didn't
that?
read all my papers.
Maybe you should break it into 2 shows.
I could.
You should
part
break
1
it
and part
into
2.
2 shows.
Yeah, I could
one
do
on
that.
Tuesday and one on Thursday.
I could do that. Tune in for the second half. 2 days
Thursday. Yeah, a cliffhanger. What would the cliffhanger be? What did we talk about an hour in?
I'd have to go back and listen.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, good times.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Yes. Good luck, and we'll hopefully converse one more time before the election.
So.
Yeah.
I've been talking about doing a
But
podcast.
you won't remember it a year from now. Just like
I
you
won't. I'll be like, was I here? I don't know.
Yeah.
I had 25 reasons why I'm not supporting Clinton, and I think we did like 3 or 4 of them.
Oh, you want to throw some more out there real
no,
quick?
It's fine. That'll be another hour.
All right.
I'm good. I think
okay.
I hope I convinced you. Clinton's going to win anyway because of her corrupt political dealings, and I think it would...
It's more important to vote for somebody you really
believe in. Just the fact that she got this far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't worry. It's not going to be a situation where it's like, well, I voted for Jill Stein. I was voting my conscience, and then Trump ended up winning. Trump's not going to win. And there was a poll out that shows her winning by
13 points.
Crazy margin. Yeah, it's like 17%, something like that. So, if we want to build a movement, we have to have the courage of our convictions when we're talking to our friends and family when we go into the ballot box. Because if we can't have the courage to vote for someone we care about, if we're scared into voting for someone because we're afraid that Trump's going to come to power, so we're going to vote for her, you can't base your vote off of fear. That's not a good precedent to set.
I think I might just write Bernie in.
A lot of people are going to do that. I think a lot of people
That's
will
fine.
do that.
That's
it's going
fine
to be
too. Yeah.
interesting to see. I bet a lot of that number will come out.
Yeah.
It'll be significant enough that you'll see it on the
news.
CNN.
Yeah.
Like, actually,
What about all the protesters that are going to converge onto the convention this month?
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
They're organizing a lot.
A lot of people are talking
It'll
about
be interesting.
not staying in the free speech zones, which I can't even believe we have those. That's insane. That's a thing. Where, your First Amendment in this little box over here, well, no one can see you. Well, that's not how speech works.
No.
It's like, First Amendment's great if you're shouting with the pillow over your head in your basement, right? That's not how it works. So that'll be fun to see people getting illegally arrested and
It'll be a fun month, couple of months.
Great month.
All right, well, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
And have safe travels back to IUP and keep educating those young minds.
And I have a day planned in my syllabus for students to take the
I Side With. I love it.
It's on a Wednesday. It's before their third project to get them thinking of ideas. It's a brainstorming project because you know how all those issues come up, and then you can click the little more information button,
do more,
and it gives you a whole.
And then do the scale of if it's an important issue to you or less important issue.
Yep. And it informs you too. So if you're like, I don't know how I feel because I don't know enough,
you look it up.
You look it up, and that's going to give them ideas for their third paper. So it has an academic purpose too.
I love it.
So, but I put it in there because of your suggestion.
Thank you.
You're influencing many students that you don't even know about.
Same with you, sir.
I love my students. They're tremendous. They're
I love my students as well, too.
Tremendous.
They're tremendous.
That I can tell you.
That I can tell you.
And on that note, we end. Thanks for coming.